racetracks? Where these drivers are going, they don't need racetracks.
Go!
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today, we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Fast and Furious street races. For this list, we'll be looking at the best less-than-legal driving showdowns across the long-running action franchise. If you haven't seen the first 8 Fast and Furious films, beware of spoilers ahead.
Before we continue, I just want to give a shout out to KartRider Drift, the latest cross-platform racing game with over 300 million players to race against. And it's totally free to play, so you can race without boundaries. KartRider offers highly detailed vehicles and environments rendered beautifully by the Unreal Engine 4. The game is filled with customization options, letting you fine-tune your kart and racer to fit your personality. And with regular content drops and the addition of new skins, karts, and tracks, there's always a new challenge to conquer in KartRider Drift. KartRider Drift is offering a limited amount of codes to Watch Mojo fans for entry into a closed beta. Check the description below for more info.
Number 10. The Fiery Showdown in Cuba. The Fate of the Furious.
You want a car, get it the right way.
How?
Race for it.
At the beginning of The Fate of the Furious, Dom's Cuban cousin loses his rundown Chevy to the imposing Raldo. Dom can win it back if he races with his cousin's second-rate vehicle.
Ve rápido. Ve seguro. Pero no llegues de último. ¡Corre ahora, listo!
After throwing Nas into the Chevy, he keeps up with Raldo's Crown Vic as they race through the colorful streets of Havana. But when Raldo's ally intentionally crashes into Dom's car, things look grim.
Adios, Toretto!
Okay, Buster. Let's see if this works.
Fortunately, Dom is able to use Nas, throw his car in reverse, and win by a hair, all while his engine is on fire. Dom and Raldo's race was an exciting showdown that took full advantage of Havana's beautiful scenery. Even after 8 films, this franchise can still make street races feel fresh.
Keep your car. Your respect is good enough for me.
Number 9. Tag Team Pink Slip Race. Too Fast, Too Furious.
Fonzie and Fabio. Glad you can join us.
Brian and Roman desperately needed 2 new cars, so they put their vehicles' pink slips on the line to challenge a pair of tough drivers to a tag team race. In the first leg, Roman falls behind after his opponent plays dirty. When it's Brian's turn to go, he plays a near-fatal game of chicken with the opposing driver to make up for lost ground. Although this crazy maneuver is effective, he still has to pull out all the stops to eke out a narrow win. The high stakes and huge disadvantages Brian and Roman faced made this race an absolute nail-biter. The scene's brilliant setup and execution turned a battle for pink slips into a standout sequence. Number 8. Auditioning for a drug lord. Too Fast, Too Furious.
The first team back here with the package will have an opportunity to work for me.
What do you say, we got to audition?
FBI officials agree to clear Brian and Roman's criminal records if they help bust drug lord Carter Verone. To get close to the twisted kingpin, they have to first prove their worth by outdriving several rivals. Since the fastest way to their destination is a highway, Roman and Brian must weave in and out of busy traffic at ludicrous speeds.
All right, let's see what this thing can do.
The duo dodge cars and drive through tight gaps with ease. They get such a commanding lead that Brian drives in reverse just for fun. It's hard not to smile when you see how much fun our heroes are having. The pure joy they get from dominating drivers makes this exciting race even more enjoyable to watch. Number 7. Brian and Dom's tense rematch. Fast and Furious.
You sure you want to do this?
A lot has changed.
In the 4th Fast and Furious film, Brian once again has to win a race in order to infiltrate a criminal empire, but this time around he has to compete against a determined Dom. Brian drives into oncoming traffic and ignores red lights just to keep up. Every time a crash blocks his way, he's forced to take extremely risky shortcuts.
U-turn if possible.
Are you kidding me?
You are now 4.2 miles from your destination.
Sorry, car.
At the same time, Dom makes dangerous driving decisions and fends off an extremely aggressive driver. The horrific crashes and insane off-road tactics all build up to Brian and Dom speeding down one last quarter mile to determine a winner. The thick tension and sense of danger surrounding this race made it impossible to look away from its exciting conclusion.
At least we know you can't beat me straight up.
I didn't know there were any rules.
Number 6. A harsh drifting lesson. The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift. Although Tokyo Drift doesn't feature many familiar faces, the new characters impressed us with their drifting skills.
What do you mean, drift?
Still need a dictionary?
One of the best displays of this driving technique occurred when protagonist Sean challenged cocky Yakuza member DK to a race in a parking garage. After Sean gets an early lead, he attempts to drift around a corner at high speed. Unfortunately, he figuratively and literally hits a wall. His opponent easily glides around the tight corner without missing a beat. The rest of the race shows us more impressive and practical drifting from DK, while Sean hilariously damages his car trying to catch up. This lopsided race was ultimately a fun way to cement Sean and DK's rivalry, while being a great introduction to drifting. Number 5. $1 Million Quarter Mile, Fast 5. Before taking on yet another organized crime boss, Roman, Dom, Han, and Brian decide to have a friendly street race for a $4 million prize.
Let's make it $1 million.
I like that. All right, $1 million quarter mile.
All right then.
Only live once. Let's do it.
The incredible bounty inspires all the drivers to speed down the streets of Rio as fast as they can.
Oh, I'm gonna get this money. I'm hungry.
Although Roman gets a cheap head start, his friends quickly catch up. Since they're all driving identical Dodge Chargers without modifications, no one has an advantage. The winner had to beat everyone with raw driving talent alone.
Don't make it too easy for me, boys.
While this race doesn't have insane conditions or canisters of NOS, its light tone and surprisingly heartwarming finish made it memorable. It also made us wish we had friends that could casually toss around a few $1 million.
Yeah! Own you! Own you!
Number 4. The original street race, The Fast and the Furious.
You're gonna win. I'm gonna win.
A multi-billion-dollar franchise began with this historic street race. Brian is a new driver to the underground scene that wants to prove himself, so he puts his car's pink slip on the line to race the legendary Dominic Toretto. As the race kicked into gear, audiences were treated to an excellent blend of practical stunt driving and top-of-the-line visuals for the time. The scene also chose to abandon music and fully rely on driving sound effects to underscore the action. This made us feel like we were in the car with the drivers. Although Brian doesn't win the race, he gets Dom's attention. And while this scene may look a little dated today, this quarter-mile race left audiences wanting more.
What are you smiling about?
Dude, I almost had you.
Number 3. A Quarter Mile to Freedom, The Fast and the Furious.
I used to drag here back in high school. That railroad crossing up there is exactly a quarter mile away from here. On green, I'm going for it.
Throughout the first Fast and the Furious, Brian was secretly investigating Dom on behalf of the authorities, but he became a part of his target's family instead. Despite their close connection, the movie ends with Brian racing to catch Dom. The duo speeds down a quarter mile that ends up at an active railroad crossing. While Brian races for his job, Dom drives for his freedom. The sheer emotional weight of this scene would have been enough to make it memorable, but it's only after they barely avoid a speeding train that this scene becomes iconic. When Dom crashes his car, Brian hands over his keys and looks the other way. Instead of fulfilling his duty, Brian chooses to help his new family.
You know what you're doing?
I owe you a 10-second car.
Number 2. A treacherous mountain race, The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift. After Sean hones his driving skills, he and DK have a rematch on a mountain road at night. The loser must leave Tokyo forever. Their elevated racetrack made for a one-of-a-kind and dangerous set piece. Every time they drifted around a tight corner, they risked falling off the mountain. The bitter rivals kept the race exciting by constantly exchanging the lead. The action becomes even more tense when DK tries to ram Sean off the mountain. Unfortunately for the Yakuza member, his dirty tactics eventually lead him to totaling his car. When Sean drifts around his opponent's wreckage and into victory, we can finally catch our breath. The unique setting and pulse-pounding driving elevated this grudge match into one of the franchise's best races. Before we unveil our favorite #1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Brian's Last Ride, Furious 7. Dom catches up with Letty, Fast and Furious 6.
This guy's crazy.
Brian's Toyota Supra versus a Ferrari, The Fast and the Furious. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Jumping the Bridge, Too Fast, Too Furious. Our top pick doesn't have dramatic weight or significant plot relevance. It's just a pure showdown between Brian and 3 other drivers to see who's best. Like the first film, the race begins by dropping background music and underscoring the action with realistic sound effects. At the same time, the colorful cars and personalities of the drivers makes the scene feel larger than life. And when Tej forces the racers to jump over a huge gap, the race soars into the over-the-top action territory that fans have grown to love the series for. The lengthy sequence is supported by tight stunt driving and fast-paced editing. Through a combination of sleek action, low stakes, and campy fun, this race earned its first-place finish. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.